What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by AC, Fitty Trent, Kev. We got the whole squad in here. I think this is the first time on the Puck It Up podcast we've ever had 4 people on the show, so this is exciting. This is Puck It Up podcast episode number 18, and you know what that means. We have an 18 that we need to give you guys because it's episode number 18. And I know Fitty Trent is sitting here. He's antsy. He wants to let you know his number 18. So who do you got? Number 18, episode number 18, Fitty Trent.
Well, my number 18, it's not even compared to anyone else's number 18, bar none, because mine was the most instrumental in hockey history. A name no one really knows, David Hindmarsh. Who is this guy? He was my PE teacher in my high school years. And that guy, believe it or not, he played in the era when the posts were basically cemented in. They were just slid in, and there would be a solid metal bar that would keep those posts aligned. He one day came in on a rush up against the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks tripped him. He slid it into the post, knee first, broke both of his knees, and that is the reason now that the posts are movable. You can slide the nets on and off the ice. Before that, you couldn't. Those little pegs that keep them on are known as marsh pegs. Why? Because of Dave Hindmarsh. Instrumental, ruined his entire career, but legend in my eyes. I have 3 hockey cards by him, all signed. Love the guy to death. Huge instrumental guy to me and my hockey loving career.
I remember that play, actually.
Yeah, I don't even know how anyone can follow that up. I don't know an 18 that actually knew. Personalizing it, Trent. I love the number 18. That's a great one on your part. Well, like a nice find. You know what I mean? That's
not just like a random guy. I mean,
that's like you knew this guy, and that's commendable. I like that. I like that. I'll go with the ugliest guy to ever play professional hockey, Mike Ricci, number 18, longtime San Jose Shark. He had no teeth. He had the bad mullet. You know, never had a cage or a visor. Just an ultimate third line. It's not like he fought a lot. He had 1,000 PIMs, which is a lot, but still for like an actual goon, he didn't really fight a lot. But he still would score some big goals and was almost, should have been a fourth liner. But a lot of teams, he got to play a lot of big minutes, at least third line, two-way forward minutes. But still, his bad claim to fame, the ugliest guy ever to play NHL hockey.
I'm going to go with a guy that invented the spinorama, and the Savardian spinorama was around when the previous incarnation of the Oilers were scoring goals. Denny Savard of the Chicago Blackhawks and the Montreal Canadiens, but mostly the Chicago Blackhawks, Hall of Famer, was probably one of the most exciting players to ever play the game. Denny Savard and the Savardian spinorama.
Yeah, so the Savards came to mind for me, but I'm going to go with somebody a little bit more of this generation. That's Marian Hossa. He played for the Penguins, so I got to try and put a Penguin on here. 1 year only. We went to the Cup that year. He was a great addition, didn't stick around. He was going from team to team to team until he could win a Stanley Cup. And then he finally ended up winning Stanley Cups with Chicago. Great player, one of the most underappreciated players of this generation. Great two-way player, and definitely will make it in the Hall of Fame one day. So we have all those great players at number 18. There's a long list of guys that wore number 18, so it was quite interesting to go through that list and try and pick and choose. But definitely got to say that Fitty Trent had the best one of the day.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So let's get into this Puck It Up podcast. We have a lot to discuss. This is our NHL regular season in review for the 2017 regular season of the NHL. We're going to talk about surprising teams, disappointing teams and players, thoughts on our personal team seasons. We're going to give you our all-star lineup this season. We're going to go look through the stats, the standings, just look through what the NHL will probably do in terms of awards. Look a little bit into the NHL playoff matchups, which were just determined as this podcast is basically going on. Actually, the last couple of games are still being determined, but it's pretty much set and sealed. So the NHL playoff matchups, just off the top, it looks like this in the East. The Capitals will play the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sadly, Maple Leafs fans will not be able to play Ottawa. I was looking forward to that matchup, but Toronto blew it. Well, we might get into those matchups a little bit later, but we're going to be doing a separate predictions video. The Canadiens will play the Rangers. The Penguins will play the Blue Jackets. That was determined a little bit ago. The Senators will play the Bruins. That was the other matchup that was determined just as of today. That's an interesting matchup as well. That Atlantic division basically kind of just got determined like right today. The Blackhawks versus the Predators. That's also been determined for a while. The Ducks versus the Flames. We'll get into that with Kevol. The Wild versus the Blues. That's an interesting matchup. I think that might be the one that not a lot of people are kind of looking at because those are two teams that I don't think have the biggest fan bases in the playoffs, but it's going to be interesting. They both have been in the playoffs consistently over the years. The Oilers versus the Sharks, which should be a very exciting series. You have McDavid and the young gun Oilers versus the West champions of last year and the Sharks. So that's a lot of really good series. Just before we get into the other topics, guys, which series are you guys most looking forward to, just looking at it straight off the top?
I think I'm really liking Ottawa-Boston because I feel like the Rangers and Montreal haven't been playing that well. So I feel like in that series, Ottawa-Boston, very similar, have had good goaltending, kind of have scoring by committee. And if you look at whoever wins that series is going to either play Montreal and New York. And that's, you rather do that than play, Pittsburgh or Washington in the second round. So I think if you're going to see a Cinderella story team, I think it comes from that Ottawa Boston series. Whoever wins that, you're going to have a chance to move on at least to the East and maybe win 2 series.
Well said there, AC. Well said. I think the series that I'm probably most looking forward to would probably having to be the Edmonton Oilers versus the San Jose Sharks, just because both these teams are so different in the way that they're made. I mean, the San Jose Sharks, they're built on, a little bit older, a little bit more experience. Meanwhile, the Edmonton Oilers, they haven't made the playoffs in a long time. Their team is still very young. So it's going to be interesting to see which team matches up better against each other, either the nice young team that's really inexperienced or the old veterans that really have not missed the playoffs a lot. I mean, Joe Thornton's missed the playoffs once in his entire career in the NHL, so it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. I definitely can see that series going deep, and either way, I can see that either one of these teams will be dangerous going into the second round.
Well, for me, the obvious one is the Flames and the Ducks, just because as a Flames supporter, that's the one that I will be. But the other one, I like that that Oilers Sharks matchup. To me, the other one that I'm really intrigued by is Alex Burrows and the Ottawa Senators versus Brad Marchand and the Bruins. I just think that series is going to be probably the most nastiest of the series for a number of different reasons. And I'm going to be very fascinated to see how what happens at the end of that, because that's going to be the dirtiest of the series, I think.
Interesting. I actually think the Pittsburgh series is going to be the dirtiest based off past play between the two teams and this season. I think there was like 4 fights in one game. So I think that's going to be maybe the dirtiest. I could see where you're going with the Bruins Senators. I was really looking forward to maybe the Maple Leafs and Senators. I thought that would be kind of like a, young gun flying style of hockey. Though Edmonton in general kind of intrigues me in this playoffs to see what they can do. I personally don't think they'll go very far, but I think, they are very intriguing. Another matchup that you guys didn't bring up that I think is intriguing is Montreal versus New York. I know Adam said they're both not playing very well, but there are two teams that kind of similar in terms of points. So it's going to be interesting. One team was like first place in their division. One team just squeaked in technically. So I think that's going to be an interesting series. Both teams are built similarly with good goaltending, kind of, pretty good forwards, no big names, and solid defense. So it's going to be basically a mirror image on both sides. So it's going to be an interesting series to me. All right, guys. So do we have any news today, Trent? Or are we just going to get right into the stuff?
I mean, I have some news here if you guys want some news, but I mean, if you want to just get right into it, I mean, I don't mind.
Is it worth talking about, Trent? Is it big time news?
Well, I mean, we just have like little things like, the Blues adding depth with Vladimir Sobotka. That's a little bit interesting just because he's come back from the KHL. No one ever thought that he'd be able to play back in the NHL because he loved the KHL so much. But this guy, I think he's underrated. I mean, he's back for the next 3 years. He did well with the St. Louis Blues. And now they might be adding him for some serious playoff run because, honestly, they don't have that many studs at forward. And Sobotka, who knows, maybe he'll be like a Russian god like Radulov coming back into the NHL.
Nobody's quite the Russian god that Radulov is. I thought you were going to hit me with something like the earth is flat.
Listen, I'm not Alex Robinson, all right? I leave that for Alexander Robinson, all right?
Okay, so anything else there, Trent?
Anything else? Nothing too, terribly to be talked about. Cam Fowler's out for the Ducks for the next 2 to 6 weeks. That's going to hurt them a lot, especially because they have a challenging team with Calgary in the first round. I think that Calgary, if they were going to want to face someone in the first round, it would probably be the Anaheim Ducks. And since their best defenseman, if not their best player, is out for their team and Cam Fowler, possibly out for the first round, that's kind of scary. And also, probably the only other thing that's worth noting is your team there, Mitch. Chris Letang, out for the rest of the season, out for the rest of the playoffs, might even miss some of the preseason. So sad to see him go.
All right.
A couple of other things, though. Right, a couple of other things you didn't mention, Trent. Lindy Ruff out as coach in Dallas. Could he be a future coach in Vancouver? I think he would be a great fit for the Canucks, actually. He knows how to bring out young talent, so I don't know. That's a guy I think the Canucks should be looking at. And I think we should acknowledge Connor McDavid hit 100 points. I think that's a big story. I think that's huge news. So
and what I'll add about Fowler is that's going to hurt Anaheim because when you watch the Ducks play, Fowler is offensively on the power play. He's kind of like a Carlson. He's the guy on the power play on their number one. He'll take a ton of shots from the point on the power play. He's the guy that brings the puck from, end line to the following blue line every time. And I think that's really going to hurt their power play. And if I think it's Calgary, right? Is going to be playing Anaheim.
Yeah.
I think they do have a chance without Fowler because I think Fowler is a key for that defensive core. And losing him, I feel like you lose almost like 30% of your whole defense. Plus your offense from your defense.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're going to discuss those playoff matchups in a different video. But let's get into the regular season recap for 2017. We're going to start off by discussing teams that were surprising, players that were surprising, as well as disappointing teams and disappointing players. So let's start off with the positive note. Who was surprising? Which team was surprising? Which players were surprising in the NHL this season? Let's start off with Fitty Trent because I know he always has very good ones. Which players, which teams were the most surprising to you, Trent?
Well, the number one team that was surprising for me was definitely the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, at the beginning of the season, my hopes for the Blue Jackets were to be not a bottom 5 team. If they could make a bottom 10 team, excellent. You've passed. You've done incredible to be not a bottom 5 team like you have been for the past. When did their franchise start? I mean, have they ever been a really good team? This is the first time that they've actually shocked me and surprised me saying, no, we are a good team. I mean, I was bad-mouthing this team from the start. I was saying that they were too young. Their young players were too inexperienced. Their old players could not get it done anymore. And Sergei Bobrovsky, I was saying, was basically useless at the end of this year after I saw what he did with the World Cup. He was doing terrible for Team Russia with the World Cup, but he's come back and he's gotten 40-plus wins this season, which is very nicely done. I was very surprised. He did very well throughout this entire season. I did not expect it, and I take it back. I mean, he did prove to me that he is the real deal. Now, players that were a little bit surprising for me in a good way, I mean, Mark Scheifele. This guy I always knew was going to be good, but a point-per-game player with the Winnipeg Jets, I mean, I expected him to be up there, maybe 60, 70 points per game when he was drafted. He was a two-way forward, I really didn't expect much. kind of a penalty killer, maybe a second-line center. I thought that Brian Little was going to be their number one guy for a long time. But Mark Scheifele completely turned my entire perspection around. 82 points this season, 32 goals, which I never thought that I'd see Scheifele do in the NHL. And he has definitely taken control of the Winnipeg Jets and said, hey, it's not just Patrick Laine on this team. I'm here as well. So good looking on the Jets going forward and good team there.
What's your thoughts on that, Adam?
Teams that surprise me. I really like to look at Columbus as being a team that surprised me. They definitely did. But I think I'm going to go with Ottawa, a team you could say we're in the weak division of the East, but still, it's no slouch finishing ahead of Boston, even Toronto. Some of the teams they finished ahead of to just be right behind Montreal. If you look at their team on paper, they do have some skilled players, but still, I don't think at the beginning of the season, if you told them, okay, second seed in the division, I don't think they'd be, they wouldn't be turning you away with that. They'd be happy with that. A team that I wish made a push for they did make a push for the playoffs, but the Tampa Bay Lightning, after all the turmoil going on in Tampa Bay, all of a sudden they just start playing some really good hockey. I think Kucherov now is an elite player, scoring 40 goals in a season. No Stamkos, barely had Tyler Johnson. I think you have a new elite sniper in Kucherov. And the West, I think the West kind of played out how everyone thought it was going to. Give credit to Edmonton. I still think they kind of went above than what people thought. Same with McDavid, 100 points. Probably going to lead the league by 11 points when it's all said and done. 11 points is a pretty large margin to win the scoring title. So dominated. So Ottawa number one. Tampa Bay surprised me. Obviously, they're not
play every game too. That's surprising in itself.
Yeah, true. Yeah. 40 goals, and he played. Yeah, exactly. And especially with those teams having injury, maybe Yzerman, when he was trading all the way these guys, maybe he's got some sort of plan because he's done a good job to this point. But I guess that's a different topic.
Kevin,
to me, the surprise, you can't when you say surprise, you can't have the Toronto Maple Leafs not in this conversation. As much as I don't want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, you have to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nobody expected them to be in the playoffs. Nobody expected it at this point this year. Their young talent came through. Austin Matthews will probably win Rookie of the Year. I think it's they played really hard. They played a lot better. They were a battling team. And I think that Leaf fans have something to look forward to after the 5 games of the Stanley Cup playoffs that they will be in. I think I think them getting into the playoffs is a significant surprise to me. And I think just overall, I don't have a specific player this year, but I think the rookies this year, I think overall, like Matthews, Laine, Tkachuk, Werenski, Matt Murray, this is one of the best rookie crops that we've had in the NHL in a long time. And I think that's been one of the – I think to me that's the thing that has, I think, surprised me more than anything else is not one specific player, but the crop of rookies that we had this year were outstanding from Matthews on down. So we got a bright future to look forward to in the NHL.
And just adding on to Kev, looking at Leon Draisaitl's, kind of a second-year player, 75 points, tied for 5th in the NHL. But I'm asking you guys, how much do we put on Draisaitl just playing with McDavid? Because we've seen, even in the junior rankings, that the players that are playing McDavid put up these massive points, but it's very hard to gauge how good they actually are. Obviously, Draisaitl was a top 3.
I think he is
a top 3 pick.
I think he's obviously better for playing with McDavid, but I think he kind of proved himself before even last year.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He kind of stood out a little bit in world tournaments before, and I think you kind of always saw his skill set, but obviously it does help for playing with McDavid. No doubt.
I think he also definitely proved it when he played for the World Cup, and he was the only German forward to go and play for the World Cup. And he didn't have McDavid on the World Cup for the Team Europe. He proved it by himself because he was with a lot of older European players. So I agree that he's also proven himself his own worth.
And I'll give it to him because his favorite German player all time is probably Marco Sturm. So I hope that's the case.
Is probably, or is he?
I think it is. I mean,
it has to be.
Definite, 100% Marco Sturm is his best player. Yeah, the worst thing that happened, he got traded for Joe Thornton, I believe.
I'm gonna go with Kunackle's dad being his favorite player.
Okay.
All right. So my surprises. But by the way, I just want to give a shout out to Kev Wall for his great musical choices in the background. Some Ariana Grande in the background. We got some Jason Derulo.
You can hear that?
Great work, Kev. Great work. All right. So going to the teams that surprised me, obviously Toronto. Come on, guys. Like Kev said, I mean, they're surprising. Nobody thought they were going to make the playoffs. And that goes into the players that I thought were surprising as well. And Kev took it. I mean, the rookies. Look at the rookies, especially not just the rookies in terms of how good they were, but their production in terms of goals. Yeah. You look at the goal scoring. Usually you don't see rookies scoring this many goals. Austin Matthews had 40 goals. Laine had 36. So those are two in the top 10 already. There's some other players in the mix for goal scorers of the year that, were really out of nowhere. You look at Cam Atkinson, really? Cam Atkinson? That follows Columbus being one of the more surprising teams, like Fitty Trent said. Jeff Skinner coming back to relevancy with 37 goals despite being on one of the worst teams in the NHL. I hope he goes somewhere else. I've always been a fan of him. I hope he gets traded because that team sucks. And even, some of those, some more of those players once you go down the list, just goal scorers that you didn't really expect to be there. So it's interesting. And back to the teams just before you go, AC. Toronto, I said Columbus. My West team would be Minnesota. They were 3 points off of the top team in the West, and I thought that they might not even make – I don't remember if I said they would not make it or if they would just squeeze in the playoffs. But, I wasn't a big fan of Minnesota this year, and it definitely proved me wrong. Dubnyk had a great year. Their depth proved to be, better than I expected. And Minnesota continues to be a team that's always in the playoffs and always in the mix in the Western Conference.
And to add on to Minnesota, the big thing was Eric Stahl between Mitch and I, because, sorry to cut you off again, AC, but Mitch and I both thought that he was going to be a third or fourth line center. Like Eric Stahl, he was done. He had proven both in Carolina and the New York Rangers franchise, he was no longer worth the millions and millions of dollars. They pumped $3 million into him, which is fine if you want him for a third liner for the rest of the time. But he's been a main scorer for them. So that's another big player that we haven't really hinted on that did really well. As I said, I'm sorry, AC, that I cut you off.
No.
Take it away.
I was just going to add on to Toronto. It has to be a big surprise because if you look at some of those teams that didn't make the playoffs, on paper, they're better teams. You look at the Islanders, you look at Tampa Bay, you look at even Philadelphia, I would say on paper has a nicer looking squad than Toronto. So I'll give them credit because they just, they kind of went like this, bumpy up and down all season when these other teams like Tampa Bay, even the Islanders, Philadelphia, they were just going the highest of the highs, lowest of the lowest, highest, and it turned out not to be as good as Toronto. Just kind of, winning 3 games in a row, losing 2, winning 3. You know what I mean? Just very basic, but it was surprising for sure that Toronto still ended up making the playoffs.
All right, guys.
I just want to add too, though, that I think that one of the stories of the year were the streaks, like the winning streaks and the losing streaks. Like Columbus had a 17-game winning streak, had a 17-game winning streak at one point, but they also ended up, before they lost tonight, they had a 6-game losing streak. I mean, Edmonton has won 15-17 going into the playoffs, but they had a slump. Calgary at one point lost 8 in a row, and then they won 10 in a row. There's a bunch of teams that had just some really long winning and losing streaks this year. So there wasn't a lot of complete consistency. But although Toronto was consistent, they had a couple of minor winning streaks and minor losing streaks, but they kind of kept the course throughout the year. So that to me, I think the stories of the streaks were part of the stories this year.
Going on to the disappointing teams and players, I know that AC already said Tampa Bay, which I think is both myself and Trent's biggest, pardon my language, but fuck up. When we looked at the predictions this year, I mean, we thought that Tampa Bay was going to be maybe first in the East. They're going to be contending for the Cup. They're going to be Eastern Conference Final. You know, they're going to be here and here and here, and they have all this great talent, and they're going to be great. They almost squeezed back into the playoffs. They didn't quite make it, but what the heck happened to Tampa Bay? They were the team that was most disappointing to me. I had them in the conversation to go to the Stanley Cup. Totally off base there. Kucherov still ended up having a great season. Obviously, they lost Stamkos. They ended up trading Ben Bishop. They had a lot of injuries and a lot of mishaps, and a couple weird things happened in their season. So it does happen. I think they'll rebound next year, but it's just weird, especially for the Music Wizard to sit there, go from an elite team to a team that's not elite. It's kind of like the Carolina Panthers, guys, of the NHL this year. So it's really strange for me. Another disappointing team, I think you have to look at the Dallas Stars. This was a team that I think was first in the West in the regular season last year. They ended up being 11th. They have Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, all this great talent, Jason Spezza, and they end up being 11th. That's shocking. So was that season last year just one that we're never going to see again from this team in Dallas, or was this just a fluky bad year?
You need defense and you need goaltending, and they had none of those.
They did, but I mean, everybody looked at their last year and they're like, I guess this is just how it's going to go. They're going to make the playoffs based on their offense, based on their scoring, and we didn't really expect them to implode because they didn't have that goaltending and that defense.
Well, Niemi and Lettinen were a year older. I mean, both of them were bad last year. They were worse this year. I mean, Lettinen this year, I'd say he might pass as a backup. Niemi's no longer anywhere in the NHL. He's like an AHL backup. Honestly,
that's exactly the point, though, Trent. Those players last year were bad. You know what I mean?
But they were worse this year.
I know, but they were already bad. So, it's not like they were good and had a fluke season. They were already piss poor. Mm-hmm. So, whatever, But those were my two disappointing teams. Disappointing players. I know he got injured, but just on the fact of Tampa Bay, Steven Stamkos kind of continues to disappoint. He's injured, and that kind of sucks. But you looked at this guy a couple years ago as one of the top 5 players in the NHL. He's no longer there, mostly based off injury, and he can't stay healthy. And that's just frustrating if you're a fan of not only Tampa Bay, but the NHL, and you look at this guy that was such a great goal scorer. Definitely a guy that did disappoint for me this year was Steven Stamkos, just because I thought he would be back to his normal self. Do you guys have any disappointing players and teams? Because I'm not sure. I know that you guys will probably have some players there that I didn't pick up.
Yeah, I'm not for teams. The East, how it plays out, I think Ottawa played well enough that kind of knocks those other teams. Like if Tampa Bay doesn't have a good season, if the Islanders don't have a good season, if Philly doesn't have a good season, and then you just add Toronto now in the mix, who makes a playoff spot, and Columbus. So I wasn't too surprised because all those teams were not that far apart. But in the West, I'll go with Winnipeg, at least to make the playoffs, because the thing with Winnipeg, they scored the most goals in the Western Conference, more than Chicago, more than Edmonton, San Jose, Anaheim, Calgary, Nashville, 249 goals more, but they gave up the second most. So that's what kind of surprised me, because they had the offense. They had a team at least that should be in the playoffs, or at least have been a lot closer than they are. Because obviously with Scheifele scoring, Bufflin still puts up a lot of points. The rookie Liney, they still need to focus on goaltending now. But still, that was a disappointment because I thought they were still good enough to at least make the playoffs this year.
No, for sure. I mean, my team that was disappointing for me is also in the West. It's not the Winnipeg Jets, but it's a team that both Mitch and I were saying from the beginning they would be making the playoffs. At the trade deadline, we said for sure that they'd be making the playoffs. We had a debate whether Calgary or St. Louis would be just squeaking in. Both those teams made the playoffs. The team that was left out, the LA Kings. I mean, I understand that Jonathan Quick goes down with an injury. Yes, that sucks. But Peter Budaj is playing the best hockey of his career, of his life. So what do? You trade for Ben Bishop just when Jonathan Quick comes back. You got two elite goaltenders in the NHL. And what happens? They both shit the bed and make you lose basically every single game for the rest of the season. And because of that, you don't make the playoffs. I mean, both these goaltenders were letting in at least 3 to 4 goals every single game. It wasn't anyone else on the team's fault. Jeff Carter was having a career season. Drew Doughty was getting it done as he always does. It was the goaltending. Both those goaltenders dropped the ball, and because of that, LA ended up being a very disappointing team. Another couple players that I want to throw out there that were very disappointing, because I'm a Canucks fan, they both share the same name, the Sedins. Why are the Canucks still playing the Sedins on the first line? This is my question to you. Bo Horvat is playing great, all right?
Trent, they have nobody else, bro.
They have Bo Horvat. Bo Horvat is a glorified second-line
What
center.
did Bo Horvat do when he got on the first line? He went like...
Yeah, but that's because we played him with the Sedins and we played him with no one. We put him with Chaput and Megna for gosh dang sakes. We put him with the AHL All-Stars. The Canucks have no one. I understand that. But you have to realize that the Sedins are no longer first liners. You got to take your young guys and you got to boost them up. The Sedins don't need to be boosted up anymore. They love Vancouver. They've come out earlier this week and said that they are not playing for a single other team other than the Vancouver Canucks. They rejected all trade offers towards them, and they said if their contracts go up at the end of the season, and they say if other teams want to sign them, that's too bad. They're not going with any other teams other than the Vancouver Canucks. They love this franchise.
We don't care about winning.
Exactly. They don't care about winning a Stanley Cup. They care about Vancouver. They don't mind losing because they have built such a great fan base and a family here. And that is why they are never going to get traded away from the Vancouver Canucks. And because of that passion that they have for the game, they're fine with moving down the line. But they can no longer be first liners in the NHL. We have no one that can build them up well enough because they're just too old. They're missing empty nets. They can't get shots away. Their plays are too predictable. So Willie Desjardins, if you're here, which I hope you're not, at the end of this season, don't put the Sedins on the first line next year.
Well, to me, a couple of things here. I'm actually going to go with a playoff team for a disappointment, and it's the Nashville Predators. I think that people had high expectations for them to be a wild card team, but to be a team within that would be top 2 in that division and competing with Chicago for the division title, not against Chicago in the first round of the playoffs. I think that people had high expectations of PK Subban, and I don't think he fulfilled them. I think it was pretty clear that Montreal won that trade, as I said, and I think people had high expectations. So the Predators, I think, disappointed a lot of people. Not me. I didn't have high expectations for them. I'm going to, I got to respond to Trent Sedin stuff here in a second, but I think the most disappointed player this year has to be Louis Eriksson. I mean, you put $43 million for 6 years to put this guy with the Sedins, and he did really nothing. That was the biggest free agent bust signing of the year. There's no question about it. I mean, Andrew Ladd probably would be a close second, but at least he turned it on in the second half of the season. Eriksson completely disappeared. I mean, his first goal as a Canuck was actually in his own net, and it just fell throughout the year. And Trent, I know that you admire the Sedins for wanting to stick around in Vancouver, but to me, it would have been better 2 years ago if you traded the Sedins. The Sedins said, you know what, I want to go to a cup contender. I love Vancouver, and I love Vancouver so much that you trade us to get you guys some future prospects, and we'll go get our cup. I think that that's more honorable to me than sticking around here. And I think, you know what, I think that as long as they are here, I don't think the Canucks are going to go anywhere. I just don't.
Kev, you bring this up like every time. Okay, so we're gonna just finish. We're just gonna.
Can I quickly add one thing?
AC, we're gonna get into this. All right, Trent, you three guys. I'm just gonna sit back. I'm gonna play the sound effects. Let's see where this goes. All right, this is off the cuff. We're gonna have a debate about the Sedins here live on the Puck It Up podcast. I want to hear the rebuttal from Fitty Trent. Let's do this.
Well, Kev, we talk about this, as Mitch said, we talk about this every single time. And you know what? I agree with you. You know what? If the Sedins wanted to go on and win a Stanley Cup, and they said, hey, to the GM, we want to win a Stanley Cup. We don't want to be detrimental to this team anymore. We want to be out. But the thing is, they are not being detrimental to the team because if we didn't have this team, I'm going to say this, we would not have any fans in the seats right now. Do we have fans in the seats? We have like 3 per game. Yes. But without the Sedins, we would have nothing. We would have zilch. The Canucks would move to Seattle, Las Vegas, Arizona, Guatemala for all I care. They would not be in Vancouver anymore because you know what? The Sedins, they draw in crowds. So you know what? If the Sedins did speak up and they said, hey, we don't want to be in Vancouver anymore, then they would be out of there before you know it. They'd be out there quicker than
I completely disagree with you. I completely disagree with you. I think the fans want to see the kids. It's like a guy like Nicky, this Goldobin kid who's scored 3 goals since he's been acquired. I think the fans want to see the kids. They want to see Besser. They want to see Goldobin. They want to see this team going forward with prospects. I don't think they go to see the Sedins anymore. The fans are going to want to see the young kids and the young stars prospering. I think as long as the Sedins will be here, they will be top 2 lines, and I think it's going to be detrimental to the organization going forward. Sorry. And the Canucks this is Iginla 2.0 because Iginla was the same thing. It was time for him to go.
But Iginla wanted to win a Stanley Cup. He went out and he told Calgary, he said, I want to win a Stanley Cup, so trade me to a Stanley Cup contending team. That's why he went to Pittsburgh. The Sedins don't care about a Stanley Cup. They care about loyalty. They care about sticking with a franchise for the entire time that they got drafted. They were supposedly supposed to be opposite on different teams when the draft started.
When Iginla puts on his Hall of Fame jersey, do you think it's going to be any other team than the Flames? Has he known any other player other than the Flames?
No, because every single team that's taken him has gone, we're taking you for a Stanley Cup. And then they realize, oh, wait, Iginla cannot win a Stanley Cup because he doesn't have the leadership to win a Stanley Cup. The Sedins, yes, they have not won a Stanley Cup, but they at least have the leadership to stick with a team. Iginla has sucked on every single team that has taken to the Stanley Cup final. Look at what Pittsburgh's done. Look at what Boston's done. Look at what the Avalanche have done. And look at what happened with the LA Kings.
So Trent, look at where the Flames are right now. And look where the Canucks are right now. I'm going to express my case. You got three first-round draft picks because you traded Iginla and Bouwmeester, and one of them has panned out. You got Sean Monahan for that, right? So you have developed some prospects. You rebuilt. You've got some young talent, and you're in a first-round playoff matchup. The Canucks are in a lottery situation for the 2nd straight year.
Yeah, but you're way behind the Canucks, man. The Calgary Flames haven't been the Canucks ever. We're totally different teams, man. It's yin and yang. The way we're doing things is a bit different, but we also were a lot better for a lot longer than the Calgary Flames have been in the last 20 years.
Yeah, but you guys were in the same. You guys were in the same position that the Flames were in. You guys were close to the cup, and
we were way closer than the Flames were ever. Dude. I don't think you understand.
2004.
Did they win a President's Trophy in 2004?
No, I'm saying the hype, the Canucks. Did you watch that team 82 games from 2009 to 2009 to 2012? Like, we were unbelievable, man. Like, we were the Penguins of now. We were the Capitals. Think of the best team this year.
You were the Capitals.
That was the Canucks. That was the Canucks.
Where are you?
For
where are
3,
you
4
right
years
now?
there.
In 2017,
we're nowhere. But I'm saying
right now.
I'm saying the loyalty of those years means something for the Sedins. They don't get you out of games. Our other players do. And if you think we can have younger players, we don't have those players on the roster that even deserve those times. The Sedins worked hard. I'm a loyalist till the end. And I think these guys play as long as you want, man. We'll find a place on our squad if you want to play that. As a fan, that's what draws me in, the Sedins, man, because what they did for this city, for this team, what we've seen them through since they were young, when Brian Burke got them, both of them, that is what the fucking Canucks are about, and that is the Sedins.
Well,
this is time for me to say this. We are all Canucks.
but you're not. Nobody's disputed the city's commitment to the community. Nobody even disputed Alex Burrows' commitment to the community. So is Alex Burrows not loyal because he asked to be traded to Ottawa?
No, he's not loyal, but I'm saying the Sedins don't care about the playoffs. I think Burrows wanted to stay here, but I'm saying that he knew he's a single entity and nowhere near the amount of clout. He played with the Sedins for like 3 or 4 years, and the rest of it he was a grinder, made some big goals, but seriously, nowhere near on the same scale as the Sedins. Nowhere close.
I just don't. I think if you would have traded the Sedins in 2000, the year you missed the playoffs, even a couple of years ago, you would have had that conversation. You would have been able to get some prospects into the lineup, and you would have been further ahead now than you are in this situation.
We would have been further ahead, but I'll take that. I don't want the Sedins getting traded, man. I think at the end of the day, we've had that time, and yeah, it didn't work out, but I still think, look at how the Sedins play. The Sedins always think it's the NHL. Remember that one year we made it with Willie? We should have made the playoffs that year, but things can happen. I think that's what brings the Canucks the last couple of years together in the room, is because they truly believe if they play good hockey, they have enough guys in that locker room that at least maybe potentially can win some games in the playoffs, or at least make the playoffs. Because that one year, that's what they did. Last year, they just didn't have anything, and it's going downhill. But still, I feel like those players aren't being like, oh, our team's shitty. Name any professional athlete that will say that his team's shitty. You know what I mean? They still think they can win every night, especially in the NHL. So I think that's what keeps them going. And that's what I'll give credit to these Canucks. It's because I watched the games this year. They're never quitting. There's been a couple games they have, but they're not quitting. They're playing their hardest, and they're just not winning.
I'll name one athlete, Martellus Bennett.
Yeah, okay. But he's a weirdo.
That's true. That's why I said it. All right, are we done?
We're done for now. We're done for now.
Okay, so
we're done for now.
Oh, that's 2008 at the door. They want their players back. Okay, let's get into something different here. Let's talk about All-Stars of 2017. We want to talk about All-Stars. Enough of Iginla, enough of the Sedins. Let's talk about 2017 All-Stars. What's our All-Star lineups this year? My All-Star lineup is looking kind of like this. I got Crosby at center. I got McDavid on the wing. I got Kane on the wing. I got Carlson, and I got Burns on defense. At goalie, I don't really know because it doesn't matter because I have such a great forward and defense. It doesn't even matter.
I mean, okay, fine there, Mitch. I mean, that's literally the same as my first line, on my all-star team. But for a goaltender for me, I mean, I'd have to go with Devan Dubnyk. I mean, Devan Dubnyk, he has been arguably the best goaltender in the NHL the past couple of years. Yes, Carey Price has always been said as being the best goaltender in the league right now, but I think Devan Dubnyk makes a very good case. I mean, he's basically the entire star of the Minnesota Wild's goaltending since they started a franchise. I mean, you can argue that he is the reason why they've made the playoffs all these years that he did. And I really love how no team wanted Devan Dubnyk. No one wanted him. He was traded for conditional picks from Nashville to Montreal, back to Edmonton, all the way down to Arizona. Nobody wanted him. And because of that, he got fired up. He wanted to prove something to the NHL, and he is now one of the most elite goaltenders in the NHL. So that's why I have to give my nod to Devan Dubnyk.
For me, I'm going to go with the second All-Star team because basically the first one is basically the same. So I'm going to go with the second here. And I'm going to throw Brad Marchand, Kucherov, and Nicholas Backstrom on my second All-Star team. Marchand could be a candidate for the Hart, an outside candidate for the Hart. Defensively, I'm going to go with Dougie Hamilton and Duncan Keith, with an honorable mention to Jeff Schultz. Those three, you could toss any three of those combinations. I think you're in good shape. And goaltending, the one guy nobody's talked about is Sergei Bobrovsky, who's statistically the best goalie in the NHL right now.
Okay, I will go simple. I'm going to just do my team. Crosby, McDavid, but instead of Kane, I'm going to go Kucherov. And then defense, I'm going to go Hedman and Carlson. Goalie, though, I'll go Braden Holtby, because still 2 goals against average for one of the best teams in the league. I thought he's just been getting better and better, and I think he's not talked about enough in that Carey Price upper echelon, because I do think he's a very good goalie. I'm not saying he's Carey Price, but he is definitely kind of the second best goalie I would choose in the NHL at this moment.
Interesting that they're both Canadian.
Yeah. And for a long time, people are always saying Canada's not molding enough good young goaltenders anymore.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. The last time you could really say
screwed
that
up
was Luongo and Brodeur, I think, back in like 2009-ish.
Yeah.
So, okay, guys. So that's pretty much it for our all-star lineup. Let's take a look at the award roundup, the stats and standings. We'll go through the final stats and standings. I'll do the standings. Trent will do the stats as always. And Trent, just before we do that, can you give us some updates on the awards? Who's most likely to win the biggest awards this year?
Well, I mean, Connor McDavid, I think, we all know he's going to be winning the scoring title with 100 points finally. We finally have a 100-point score. That has not actually happened in quite a few years in the NHL, from my knowledge. It's always been close, high 90s, to the mid 90s. But this is the first time we've seen 100 points in quite a while. Mitch, I have to say you called it. You nailed it right on top of the head with the Maurice Rocket-Richard Trophy when the season started. You said that Sidney Crosby was going to win the Maurice Rocket-Richard Trophy. And not only win it, you said that he was going to win it with 45 goals. Well, he got 44 goals, and it looks like he will be winning that Maurice Rocket-Richard Trophy. Then we move on to defensemen. I still think that probably Brett Burns is going to be our leader for that, Norris Trophy winner. I still like to call, Justin Schultz in that race because, we always nickname him Norris, so he's probably up there. And for the goaltending, that's going to be a little bit different, the Vezina, because as we said, you got Sergei Bobrovsky, you got Braden Holtby, you got Devin Dubnyk, you got Carey Price, and even Matt Murray. They're all kind of in the conversation. Right now, Sergei Bobrovsky is the best goaltender statistically, but it's not always the statistics in the regular season. It's also how does their team do in the playoffs and how does that goalie stand out in the playoffs. So that's kind of who we have leading the big awards right now.
You forgot to mention that NBA MVP is going to Russell Westbrook.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. I'm sorry.
He averaged a triple-triple.
What, Adam?
He averaged a triple-double.
All right, guys. Let's go to the stats and standings real quick. For the standings, let's go to the I'm just going to go conference standings. Screw these division standings, all right? So we're going in the Eastern Conference. Washington, end of the season, first place. Pittsburgh, second place, Eastern Conference. I'm having a little bit of an echo here. Columbus, third place, 108 points. Montreal, this isn't the playoff standings. This is just the order by points. Montreal, fourth with 103 points. Rangers, fifth with 102 points. Ottawa, 98 points, sixth place. Boston, seventh place, 95 points. Toronto, 95 points in eighth place. Then when you go down the line, Islanders, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, Carolina, Florida, Detroit, Buffalo, New Jersey. Western Conference still have the echo. Don't know why. Okay. First place, Chicago. Second place, Minnesota, right behind them, 106 points. Chicago has 109. Anaheim, 105, wins the Pacific Division. Third place in the West. Edmonton, fourth place. St. Louis, fifth place. San Jose, the Western Conference winner last year, sixth place. Calgary, seventh. Nashville, eighth. Then you go down the line, Winnipeg, Los Angeles, Dallas, Arizona, Vancouver, and Colorado. Colorado finished the season with grand total 22 wins and 48 points. So those are the standings for 2017 regular season, just in case you didn't know. And for the stats, Fitty Trent, give us the points and the goals, bro.
Okay, for the stats, just a nice little quick rundown. Of course, we have McDavid, just reached 100 points. Sidney Crosby, kind of close behind him, 89 points, but that's impressive since he only had 75 games played. People don't remember that he missed some of the first games of the season. You got Patrick Kane right behind him at 89 points as well. Nicholas Backstrom definitely been the best offensive player for the Washington Capitals with 86. Nikita Kucherov with 85, a great season, even though the Tampa Bay did not make the playoffs. Brad Marchand up there, 85 points. Mark Scheifele, as I mentioned, 82 points. Brett Burns leading all defensemen with 76 points, and more impressively, 29 goals, almost a 30-goal season, which I don't think we've seen since like Paul Coffey or something like that. Vladimir Tarasenko, or Tarasenko as we like to call him, 75 points. Leon Draisaitl, 75 points, so clearly he works well with McDavid. Then we go on to the goals. As I said, Sidney Crosby, 44 goals, and very impressive, followed by the rookie Austin Matthews with 40. Nikita Kucherov also with 40. Vladimir Tarasenko, that's why we gave him the name, 39 goals. Brad Marchand, 39 goals. Jeff Skinner, we mentioned him a little bit earlier, definitely a comeback year with 37 goals. Another rookie that's been doing great for their team, Patrick Laine with 36. Max Pacioretty, kind of come back down to earth since when he had those really good seasons a long time ago, but still doing well, very well. 35 goals. Cam Atkinson leading Columbus's offense, 35 goals. And David Pastrnak, arguably being the best rookie for the Boston Bruins and maybe even in that conference with a stunning 34 goals.
Yeah, and he's going to be relied on heavily in the playoffs for sure, because he's the guy that gave them a lot of scoring in during the season, I think. So who else is going to score for that team? That's the whole thing about even against Ottawa. Well, obviously we're going to have a playoff prediction, but he's going to have to at least score 2 to 3 goals in that series. And Ottawa is kind of similar, where who's going to step up there? I think it's a really evenly matched series, but it brought on by the Pastrnak talk.
Yeah. So let's look back at 2017 to wrap up this video. Just simply, what will 2017 in the NHL be remembered for, guys? Give a short little summary of what 2017 will be remembered for. Starting off with the great Fitty Trent.
I mean, I think Kev, kind of put it nicely. It's the year of the streaky teams. We'll never remember one team dominating from the start and going all the way through. Every single team had their downfall. Every single team had their really good run. You even look at the elite teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are struggling off and on there in the middle of the season. You look at the Washington Capitals when they first traded for Kevin Shattenkirk and how they started losing every single game because Shattenkirk could not find his frickin' role on the team. Luckily, he found the role on the team, though. I'm glad to see that, Kevin Shattenkirk. I've been calling you out basically every single episode. You finally showed up, which is good to see. So, yeah, this is just the year of the streaky teams. We've seen basically every single team go on really tough losing streaks and every single team go on really high winning streaks. And honestly, those really high winning streaks, we've kind of also hinted on this, was because of the rookies. The rookie scoring has been great. And I made a video on the Bottom Line View maybe about a month ago about, is this the best rookie class of all time? You guys should definitely go check that out, because I've compared it to past rookie classes, and it may be the greatest rookie class of all time, this one that we're seeing right now.
I don't think it was the most memorable NHL season we've had in some time with those streaky teams. I think the playoffs are going to write itself out, because I feel like if Pittsburgh or Chicago wins, people aren't going to really remember in this season. Maybe if Edmonton makes a push and gets to the Western Finals against Chicago or something like that, I'm waiting for the playoffs to have that really what this season was all about. And then Washington's a big thing too. It's like we've seen this before. Now, is this going to be a season where Washington was the best team and then Pittsburgh ends up winning the cup, or Chicago ends up winning the cup, and we're just like, oh, those were good teams. They know how to play playoff hockey. They win, right? So I think it's still – we can't write it in pen right now what this season has been all about.
Okay, I'm going to head out after this comment, but to me, the other story is coaching. I think that there's a number of coaches this year that you could put in the Jack Adams Award conversation. Tortorella, Claude Julien for how he turned around Montreal, Bruce Cassidy for turning around Boston when he came in. Coaching has had a huge impact on a number of different teams. You look at Todd McClellan, Glenn Gullickson, Randy Carlisle. There's some really interesting coaches right now, and I think that's what this season also for me will be remembered by. I'm going to get out of here because I got to go to work, so I'll talk to you all soon. Peace
Number
out.
one, man.
All right, so my storyline that the NHL 2017 regular season will be remembered for, and the 2017 season, as Adam said, the playoffs will write themselves. We'll probably be discussing the same teams that we always are around this time of year. But mine is the blending of generations. You looked back in the 80s, and you saw the era of the Islanders blend into the era of Gretzky, blend into the era of Lemieux. I think that's sort of what we're seeing right now. We see the Crosbys, we see the Canes, we see the Ovechkins still at the top of their game with their supporting casts. You look at Pittsburgh, you look at Chicago, you look at Washington, three of the best teams in the NHL right now. But then you blend that generation with the up-and-coming generation of McDavid, Matthews, Launay, all these guys. So that's what I think this season's going to be remembered as the first season where these guys like Crosby were starting to be replaced by a new generation, which I don't think we've seen in a while. So I think that's what this season's going to be remembered for. Depending on the Stanley Cup winner, we'll see what happens. I'm still hoping for one matchup and one matchup only. That is yet to happen, but we'll keep that for our predictions video. This coming week, make sure you check that video out. This is all for the Puck It Up podcast, episode number 18. Do you guys have anything to plug real quick before we say goodbye? Nothing, Trent?
I mean, I was pointing at AC. You was trying to get me the extra, but, I was trying to give AC.
You're extra king, so I just assumed.
Exactly. I'll just say that bottom line view will be keep on grinding, keep giving you recaps, NBA. I might start. I'm gonna start NBA, I think, as well, and
Good
obviously
idea.
NHL, and it's playoff time too. So it's exciting all around because when playoffs start, even if I love the NBA, but it's hard to watch just a regular season game. So it's like NBA when the playoffs start. I'm watching every playoff game. I'm watching every NHL playoff game. Right. So we're going to be live recapping it pretty much probably every second to every day.
Perfect. I think he nailed it. I mean, as he's saying, we're doing this all for you guys. The bottom line view is all for you. You think it might be for us, but we're just basically giving you what we know, and what we want to hear. So be sure to comment below about our videos, any of those recaps, any of the videos that have already been pre-recorded, because we're just getting bigger, we're getting better, and it's all because of you guys. So like, subscribe, comment, and be sure to tune into the Bottom Line View every single day.
Peace out.